There's two. Yeah, there's two. There's one there. It's just behind
Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag Okay, we're going to move very quickly. We have a big agenda, but I do want to take a moment to say something. Folks, settle down, please. Folks, settle down, please. Folks, you want to settle down, please? I've been living here for 10 years, and this is the first meeting. This is the first meeting at which Miriam Cohen is not sitting at the WOA table. I suspect that there are people who are happy about that. There are people who are not. Look, I've had run-ins with her. There were times when she disliked me. There were times when I disliked her. I remember one time going to her and I said, I got the feeling you're angry at me. She goes, yeah, I am, but I'm over it now. And that's the nature of doing what she did and what we do. Sometimes we're going to anger you. Sometimes you're going to praise us. That's goes with the territory. What I can say, though, is that nobody in this room, nobody in this community has put in more time and hours than Miriam Cohen has. She attended hundreds of meetings, hundreds of hours, and then spent time with management people, with Bill Hinkle, with Peggy Swanger, with the current management team. She would be one-on-one in Jamie's office or in Sean's office. And this community owes this woman a debt of gratitude for all of the time she spent. I don't know anybody else who's ever going to spend anywhere near as much hours for our community as she has. So thank you, Miriam. I don't know if she's on Zoom or she's in the room, but she's entitled to that. Okay, I'm going to move forward. We're going to have a roll call. Sean is then going to take over to discuss the Greenbrier budget. We will have a hopefully brief open question and answer, but we will attend to every question and answer. We ask that you keep your questions this time just to the budget, because the WOA people have to have their time to discuss the budget, and we want to get home before Colbert goes on tonight at 11:30. So let's go with the roll call, Michelle.
Okay, from the Greenbrier Board, Mark Sirks.
Here.
Alan Greenberg.
Here.
Jack Sandler is absent. Okay, Wayne Baruch. Chester Trubinsky. Okay, from the WOA Board, Larry Rosen. Jay Ressler. Karen Schoenberg. Kathy Dodano. Surjit Sandhu. Tom Clark. Bob Brown. And we also have Sean Swanger. Okay. Jamie Cullen. And myself, Michelle Shanahan.
All set, Mark?
You're up, Sean.
All right, good evening. Before we get started, there are a number of documents in the back. There's an agenda. There is a quick or a front and back on the insurance and the current insurance industry, what's going on right now in not only our industry in the HOA world, but in general across this country. Very important document that you read, okay? Many of us have been hit hard, even on the personal insurance lines. Commercial lines are even worse, which we'll get into this evening. And then there are two other documents. There are, for Greenbrier, it says Greenbrier and WOA on the front, okay? And that is the detail behind the budget. That's for you. That's a supplemental. sheet for you. If you have questions on that, more than welcome when the time comes to ask about the detail pages. Inside the slideshow is going to give you a summary plus some details on the variances from year to year. But again, feel free to ask questions about the supplements that you have in front of you. They're also in your portals for everybody that's online. They're in your portals right now. As far as the slideshow, that will be posted after the meeting to your portals. It is nearly 27 pages long. Would have been an excessive waste of paper to print this out for tonight. However, it'll be in your portal tonight, so you can always review it and afterwards ask any questions that you may have that come out of that. When we get to the condo and WOA, there's a separate document back there for just condo owners. So I suggest you have those with you while we go through this. And again, if you have any questions on the supplements, please, when time comes, ask. All right. We're going to do things a little bit different this evening. Typically, we start with WOA, then we go to condo and then Greenbrier. However, we're going to start with Greenbrier tonight. We're going to start with Greenbrier, and then we are going to go to a question segment for just Greenbrier only, just the Greenbrier portion of the budget, and then the Greenbrier board will eventually vote. So we'll start with that. Oh, not working. You can click, if you click anywhere on the screen, it'll go. All right, so in general, across the budget, one of the biggest items that hit this community was insurance. And what I did with this is I created a grid that has insurance impact by individual association, and also a grid that shows insurance impact by association type, excluding golf. And in the end, for Greenbrier, there is with the $9 increase, there's a 14.3% increase. Overall, that was a small piece in insurance in Greenbrier because Greenbrier only has the liability policy. They don't have the property policy. So their increase was 17% year over year. But as you look at this grid, you can see that the impact on insurance in our budget. So just to go overall, if you're a condo resident, again, I'm starting off with this because this is the hot item for this year. You're going to see this across all the budgets. All right, for condo, you were at 10.6% increase overall, again, weighted average overall. The insurance premium impact for condo was $40.22 of the 58 was all insurance premium increases. Again, substantial. So your 7.4% was insurance, and the remaining was 3.2%. So if you remove insurance, all our lines are 3.2%. And for Greenbrier, your total increase, excluding golf, was $23, a 7.8% increase overall. And your insurance impact was $8.97 of that. All right, insurance impact from percentage standpoint was 3.1. And then all other items 4.7. And again, I lead off with this because this is kind of the meat and potatoes of what went on this year. So next slide, please. In Greenbrier, we've seen this slide before. For those that are returning, there are 1,194 homes. Included in their operating budget are administration, which is insurance, bad debt, legal, audit, printing, copying, and postage, bank service charges and lockbox fees, supplies, and more. From grounds and landscaping, that includes your mowing, your landscaping contracts, your general grounds maintenance, your CMA driveway applications, road repairs, electricity, which is your street lighting, refuse and recycling, fences and gazebo, and a contribution to the capital reserve. In 2023, improvements and projects for Greenbrier were as follows. Paving of 6 streets, crack filling and repairs, phase 1 of the berm enhancement project, street sign replacement project, finalized a color palette for exterior home modifications, EV charging policy, front door policy, and more. Planned for 2024, paving project as needed, phase 2 of the berm enhancement project, signs for speeding, and more. Now, what we have, next slide, please. This is the summary of the budget. In your hands is the full detail of the budget that breaks it down line by line. Okay, so in the summary up top, what we have is you have your first line of assessments. That's the increase in income needed to cover the increase in the operating expenses. Pretty straightforward. This year, we've brought back interest income with rates higher. Violation fees, again, coming out of COVID where the violations were low or non-existent. We're now starting to see some fees coming in. Late fees have been pretty stable from year to year. Appropriated surplus, that is prior year surplus that we'll take and we'll put back into the budget. Unfortunately, because we've been running a very lean operating budget, our surplus tends to dip. And we're reducing the contribution from surplus from 70,000 to 50,000. Again, that's just based on what's available from a surplus standpoint. And we're also adding back other income of $1,000. So your difference in total revenues year over year that are available was $111,952. From general administration, their expenses increased by $12,198. We'll go into detail on the next page when we get there. Grounds and landscaping increased $6,500. And your contingency, which is just a budget plug, that's all it is increased $484. Replacement reserve, there was a new study done this past year, and it adjusted what needs to be contributed by $32,770. And deferred maintenance, we're bringing this account back. I think it's been 3 years since we've contributed to this account. This is solely to cover the berm project that is going to be taking place over the next couple of years. So you'll see as a budget item for the next couple of years until that project's done, a $60,000 deferred maintenance line. So overall, your total operating expenses and reserves are $1,086,616 in total. Go back one. So your monthly assessment is for the Greenbrier portion of this budget is $72, up $9 from $63 from last year. So what changed from year to year? You can go to the next slide, please. So we'll go through each item where there were variances. Again, your detail page that you have in front of you breaks down every single line, all of the small, even where there were no changes. So if you have any questions again on that, we will get to that. Printing, copying, and postage, we were able to reduce to $3,700 from $7,000. Again, as we continue to focus on electronic communications, hopefully that printing and copying and postage number continues to come down. Insurance premium, 17% increase on the liability policy due to claims industry increases. This was also adjusted for the fourth quarter of 2023. For those that don't know, our policy period runs from 10/1 to 9/30. So when we have large increases like this, it disrupts the current budget for the year. So that was an increase of $12,723. Election costs, 2023 was a non-election year for Greenbrier. The elections will be back in 2024, so we've added those costs back in. And all other budget lines totaling $31,750 had a variances of $275 in total. Again, in the detail in the document you have in front of you. Grounds and landscaping, no change in your trash contract at all year over year. That stayed flat. No change in your landscaping and mowing contract. That stayed flat year over year. General grounds maintenance did improve by $6,500. We found that the aging community needs additional tree work, additional work around the grounds. So we did increase that as we saw some budget overages in that line. All other budget lines totaled $42,000 with no variance at all. Again, I said before, contingency, that is exactly what it is. It's just a budget plug to get everything to balance out correctly. It's a line that we can fall to if something extraordinary happens, but typically it's just to balance the budget. Capital reserve contribution, again, up $32,000. The new study, and we're injecting less less money from discretionary into the operating budget. We did reduce that as home sales have started to decrease. There's less discretionary funds available to use for the operating budget like we've done in the past. So we'll have to continue to scale down the usage of discretionary funds inside the operating budget. And again, $60,000 variance from year to year on the multi-year berm improvement project. Next slide, please. Okay, so for a Greenbrier resident, you see the increase from 63 to 72, $9. We will get to the WOA budget later on. The increase there is $14. Golf increased $2. Again, we personally have this board and Greenbrier board have nothing to do with the golf budget. If you have any questions, you have to reach out directly to them. They feed us the information and we collect the fees for them. So they went up $2. So the Greenbrier, you were looking at your total monthly assessment will be $350, up $25 from $325 this year. And then below you see the 5-year history of the assessments for within Greenbrier. And that is the conclusion of the Greenbrier. So we will open up to questions, and the questions have to be just about the Greenbrier portion of the budget. We are not going to take any questions on the WOA or the golf side right now. With golf, we won't take it all, but WOA.
Questions, step up to the podium and let us know your name and your address.
Good evening to the WOA board. My name is Marilyn Gerstein. I live at 29 Westboro Lane. And would you be more specific about the cost of the berm? I would like to know what the cost of the removal of the trees, also the replanting to reestablish what we were told was a living fence that was supposed to give us security and supposed to protect people from the outside seeing into our homes for those of us that live on a berm.
That's a question for the board. I can give the details. Roughly each phase is $60,000 is the plan. But as far as the rest of your question, the board has to answer that.
Really don't want to spend a lot of time talking about why we went ahead with the berm project. It has to do with the nature of the trees that were there and the damage that they are tending to do to the rest of the berm from the dropping pine needles. And that, along with people having issues with what Marilyn's talking about, being able to see in, gave rise to the berm project. We're spending money over the course of a good number of years to trade out the pine trees that are damaging the property and that are causing problems for trucks going by on Half Acre Road. And we're going to put in replacements. And that's exactly what we did. The goal is to have it look as lush as, for instance, Stonebridge is now. We're following pretty much the formula that was used there to bring that lush look to their perimeter. And that's where we're headed. But it doesn't happen the day after you plant or the day after you take out the old stuff. So this is an ongoing thing. I'd like to, though, stay on the subject of the budget rather than the
Excuse
berm
me.
issue. And we
Excuse
could,
me, Mark, may I ask an addendum to that question? Who approved the removal of the trees on the berm without the municipal arborist giving permission?
we did a presentation here on the berm project. Jamie, I don't know exactly how to answer this question. Do you have a clearer insight?
Yes, so permits are required to remove shade trees. That's why it's the Shade Tree Commission. So the arborist was called and eventually LMS did fill out a permit. However, no shade trees were actually removed. Only evergreens were removed. If you look, the shade trees that were there, the 3 maple trees do remain. No shade trees were removed during the project.
Do you have intentions of going beyond that area and removing trees from Applegarth? I'm sorry, Half Acre Road.
Yes.
It's a multi-year project.
And the shade tree commissioner and the arborist will be involved in whatever you remove going forward. Am I correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mark Lindell, 15 Trent Road. My question has to do with the snow removal budget line. On the Greenbrier budget, it's 37,000, and I'll circle around, but on the WOA budget, it's 155,000.
Correct.
I looked at the financial statements for September. On the WOA financial statements, there's approximately $600,000 of snow removal reserve.
Okay.
On the Greenbrier budget of financial, there's zero.
Right.
Is it all combined?
No, so the CMA application you see on the Greenbrier budget is an elected option that Greenbrier does for the driveways and the sidewalks for the Greenbrier community. So because it's an elected option, it's a single line on Greenbrier.
Is it on the balance sheet, what's held over from year to year?
No, there's no resolution in place to reserve. If the entire 37,000 is not used, it goes back to the surplus or to offset potential overages elsewhere. There's no resolution in place for Greenbrier to roll over into a reserve. There is in WOA, but not Greenbrier.
Okay, let's go back to WOA just real quickly. Why is the reserve 600,000 plus 150,000, which brings it up to 750,000, which is 5 times the annual budget? That's ridiculous.
Well, the snow reserve has a long history of saving this community in bad winters. So one large storm, 10 inches or more, can cost this community upwards of $400,000. That snow reserve is in place so that if we have 2 large storms in 1 year, there's no need for a special assessment of the community. Your neighbors across the street last year had a very large special assessment for snow. That snow reserve was established in the 2000s, I believe, to offset that chance of a special assessment. Now, I have been moving the budget down. That budget used to be $275,000 to $300,000. I've moved it down to what would cover one medium-sized storm, roughly, would cover one medium-sized storm, and then we would dip into the snow reserve if needed. It's really there to cover us. And I know everybody, it's been mild. We know that, but you know how this works. It's mild for 3 or 4 years, and then all of a sudden you get a winter where your snow expenses are $700,000 or $800,000. That will help cover us in that.
You're
event.
anticipating one disaster a year, in effect.
Not disaster,
Well,
snowstorm.
a snow
Snowstorm.
disaster. Snow disaster.
We are, given the fact that we have that large reserve.
Okay.
We can be able to move that budget down. Now, it stayed the same for this year because again, I'm looking at one medium-sized storm, 4 to 8 inches. We're roughly covered depending on whether or not there's an overnight freeze and it's a 2-day event, right? If it goes into a 2-day event, we hit the snow reserve and we'll draw down on that. No special assessment, no hit the operating budget except for the full budget line. So that's the theory behind that. I mean, I've discussed in the past where we've talked about changing that resolution to put a cap on the reserves. It's been something that maybe will come up again. I hate to think that this mild weather is going to give us a false sense of security, and then all of a sudden we're hit with
Okay.
three massive storms. But that's what that's about.
My other question regards the bad debt expense. What's the history, and are liens put on houses that are not paying their
So
monthly maintenance?
yes, so right now, your association in Greenbrier, 1,194 homes. We've been actively managing this for the last couple of years, especially when we went into COVID. You do not have a single home in Greenbrier more than 3 months right now, which is astonishing. It's probably one of the best in this country when I talk to others. We have nobody. We have a couple teetering on 3 months. We do not issue liens. We do not go after the lien until we hit 6 months.
Okay.
And then once we hit 6 months, depending on, I will work with each individual, depending on the situation. Sometimes there are states. In estates, a lot of times we automatically will put the lien in because we want to get in first on the waterfall of debtors and creditors that are looking to come after them. But I will work with the homeowner. And again, each situation's a little bit different. But yes, at 6 months, we move forward with it.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anybody else up there? No? We're good to go? Okay, so Michelle, will you call the roll vote for the, I have Jack Sandler's proxy that I will read, so you can call his name and I will respond.
Just need a motion.
I make a motion that the Greenbrier Board accept the budget as it has been presented tonight.
A second. All right, and I'll do a roll call.
Yep.
Mark Zirks,
Yes, I approve.
Alan Greenberg,
Approved.
Wayne Baruch, Chester Trubinsky, and Jack Sandler is absent.
I will read you what
Okay.
Jack has written.
Thank you.
He sent this to me. Our GWCA initial draft budget is prepared by our controller, Sean Swanger, and then reviewed and analyzed by our Budget and Finance Committee, along with the members of the GWCA board. Adjustments to the budget are made as needed, and then the final draft is approved by the members of the GWCA board for publication and distribution to our fellow homeowners. We are always aware of the need to keep our community safe, beautiful, and affordable. Keeping this in mind, I vote yes to accept our GWCA budget as it is presented to you tonight. And with that, I make a motion that the GWCA board close their meeting. We need a
Okay,
roll-
motion carried. We're gonna move on to the next part.
Okay, we're going to move on to the condo section. No food for you. All right, so we're going to move on to the condo section next. And we're going to start the slide up there with the operating summary. There are 413 homes in the Whittingham Condo Association, 213 townhouses, 64 single-family homes, and 136 manor homes. The budget includes administration of insurance, bad debt, legal, printing, copying, postage, and more. A contribution to the capital reserve, grounds and landscaping, your landscaping contract and maintenance, general grounds maintenance, your irrigation, pest control, lighting, road repairs, and more. In the residence section of the budget, there is exterior repairs, home monitoring, refuse and recycling, and more. Again, each condo owner should have the detail in front of them, that supplement sheet. And will be, that again, you can ask questions about that supplement at the appropriate time. Completed in 2023. So here's all of the improvements and projects in the condo. Next slide, Jamie, please. All right. Completed in 2023, berm enhancement project currently in progress. The concrete sidewalk and front porch replacements. LED light conversions to bollards currently in progress, condo door painting, manor building sign replacements, driveway parking, common parking area paving, major chimney flue repair project, B-vent replacements, and more. Planned for 2024, additional B-vent replacements, additional chimney flue repairs, additional concrete sidewalk and front porch replacements, additional brick repairs and replacements, additional door paintings, driveway seal coating, tree pruning, patio fence maintenance and repair, phase 2 of the roofing project, solar project considerations for the roofs in the condo, and more. Next slide, please. Here is we'll go over the grid. This is. Here are the carrying charges for, and on the slide, it has blanked out the townhouse, the labels for it. So it is. Give me 1 second. Let me pull that up. Yeah, it blocked it out. All right. Just bear with me 1 second. We've got a block out on this. Okay. For your townhouses, you have $386 as your condo portion. For the single-family homes, you have $326 is your 2024 condo portion assessment. And for your manors, it is $336 is your condo portion. WOA, as stated before, and we'll go over more detail in a little bit, is $244. Total without golf for townhouses is $630. With golf is $664. Total single-family homes without golf is $570. Total single-family homes with golf is $604. Total manor homes is $580 without golf. Total with golf is $614. Your townhouses, your total without golf was an increase of $63 in total. For single families, it was $52. This is without golf. For manors, it was $53 without golf. With golf, townhomes are $65. With golf, single families are $54. And with golf, your manors are $55. Next slide, please. As you can see here, the top portion is your revenue section. An additional $218,000 in revenue was needed from assessments from 2023 to 2024. That's the change. Late fees, we have increased based on history of $2,000 year over year. And appropriated surplus, we have no surplus left to inject into the operating budget from prior years. Again, we've run a very lean budget in the condo for the last 3 to 4 years, which draws down on your surplus. So we have a minimum surplus that we need to maintain for liquidity. General administration, there were increases from last year to this year of $161,893. As we get to the detail, you'll see that that's mainly insurance. Grounds and landscaping, we were able to reduce the budget by $28,900. Residence repair and maintenance, the budget increased by $25,000. Contingency, again, as I stated before, is a plug to get the budget to balance. Replacement reserve, last year, we're maintaining the contribution from 23 to 24 in total. Last year, we used $24,000 from discretionary to help reduce the operating contribution, help also offset increases in the maintenance fees. Again, with discretionary, with home sales slowing down, there's less of a discretionary fund to be able to use to inject back in. And deferred maintenance stayed flat year over year. Your total operating expenses, budgeted operating expenses and reserves for 2024 is $1,012,710. Your weighted average monthly assessment is $360, up from $316 or $44. Weighted average monthly means that not each of the units are charged the same, obviously for reasons. That's what's called it's called a variable budget, right? So not everybody shares the exact same cost. Some are based on the size of the unit. Next slide, please. So the first item is again, as I mentioned before, is the one major change from year to year. your insurance premium, and again, the document in the back does a pretty good job. And there was a separate meeting for condo owners that went over the deductible change and what's going on in the insurance industry. We have extensive claims in the condo. Many claims. They're not large in dollar amount, but these small claims, when they get into the dozens, become what's called nuisance claims, and they're very expensive to handle for the insurance companies. These are the ones that really hurt us when it comes to loss runs and renewals. So couple that with an industry that was looking at standard increases between 30, 40, 50%. Couple that with we're a client that has a lot of claims. So when you put those two together, we saw our property lines almost double. We have a 75% increase year over year in insurance premium. The impact from that was $32 of your 44. So again, major, and there's not a whole lot, there's actually nothing we can do as an association to offset that. We started working with our broker in June, and at the end of the day, it was very late in September and almost to October 1st when our policy renews. We had one quote from all of the providers, insurance carriers in this country that they could reach out to. One carrier quoted us, and it was the one that we currently had. Everybody else in the industry declined to quote us. There's a couple of reasons. I think Larry can probably explain a little bit better on the insurance side of this once, is he there? Yeah. So there's a lot of factors, and it's sometimes it's not just the claims, it's the type of community, it's the age of the community. And we pretty much had 3 strikes against us very early on in this process. With Larry's help, Larry's in the industry, we reached out to another broker that specializes in high risk or distressed properties. And then again, we were stonewalled completely. Not a single carrier would quote us. And I'll let Larry give a little bit, because this is the big item. I'll let Larry give a little more color around
So, thank you, Sean. Unfortunately, due to the amount of claims that happened over a short period of time, between the fires, the water damages, the slip and falls, the pipe breaks, cars into buildings where the insurance company had to pay those claims. And as Sean said, that the smaller the claim that the insurance company handles, they call it a nuisance claim, because the handling costs, thank you. The fact that an insurance company, in order to process a claim, handle the claim, prepare the claim, negotiate the claim, settle the claim, costs them a lot of money. So when you look at it, it's not the bottom line that you receive the end results, the payment. All the money that's factored into the handling of the claim increases the insurance company's cost. Once you have a situation like we do, where we had a lot of these small nuisance claims, an aging community, aging buildings, needing repairs, roof repairs, siding repairs, and as I said, the fires, basically an insurance company doesn't want to insure you. And then if you take a look across what's happening across our country in the last 5 years, there's been approximately $500 billion in claims paid by insurance companies. And that's increasing with all the natural disasters. So we get hit double. One, that the insurance companies are not really wanting to write our type of property anymore. And 2, with the natural disasters, them taking a big hit, they pass it along to the average policyholder. And we can't change it. We need insurance. So as Sean said, I was able to put us in touch with an agent that only handles distressed properties, and even he couldn't find a company that would bind us. So that's what happened.
So again, the $32 impact for that line makes up the bulk of your increase, but we'll continue down. Bad debt expense, we did increase this by $2,500. We have 2 units in collections right now. which I'm pretty confident we're going to get all of the money that was in arrears, but as they get held up in some of these procedures and foreclosures and all of this process, you get a feel, but you don't have a number until the dollars actually move. So pretty confident that we got ahead of it as best we could. And within the general administration, all the budget lines of 13,100, there was only a variance of $100 there. So again, in your detail in your packet that you have. Grounds and landscaping, landscaping contract and the plantings are flat over year. There was no increase in your landscape contract that was built in. Lighting at R&M. So we have, our budget last year was 32,500. It dropped off significantly. The last 3 to 4 years, maybe even 5 years at this point, there has been massive replacements and maintenance being done to the lighting in the condo. I know there's still issues. We're dealing with a lot of legacy, type issues in an infrastructure that was installed poorly from the beginning, maintained poorly in the first 15 years or so. But again, you're starting to see the use leveraging the capital to replace the obsolete or outdated equipment. Our operating expenses have come down substantially. So there's a $22,500 drop in the operating expenses in that line. So something we were looking forward to seeing, given all the capital work that was done. Pest control, during the year, we went to a new pest control vendor with, seems to be improved service and lower costs. So that's a win for everybody in that case. We're able to reduce that budget by $6,000 for the year. And again, all other budget lines totaling $72,800. There was no other major variances involved in that. In residence repair and maintenance, exterior, we needed to up the exterior repairs from 83 to 98. This is really the history of what we're seeing in the operating budget. And as they age, as the condos age, and as we continue to replace roofs and eventually replace siding in the future, until all of those projects are done, unfortunately, these numbers in the operating budget are going to continue to stay pretty high. These are areas that there's no option. When the work comes up or an issue comes up, it has to be done. So we saw an increase in that. Home monitoring, we increased from 110,000 to 120. And this is mainly because the $10,000 increase is mainly because part of the inspection process that's done through the township and for the DCA is the township used to do a good portion of this or all of it for free. They no longer do it for free. So we have to pay an outside vendor to do a part of the inspections. I believe, if I'm correct, the township is still present during that inspection, but the individual that works for the township that does the inspections is not properly licensed. So this can no longer be for free. So we've incorporated that into the budget. We experienced that a little bit in the budget for this year. It was an unexpected change for 2023. So we've put it into 24. We are working on a way to potentially reduce these costs. It does take some time to figure out with the licensing and everything, training and licensing. All other budget lines within the residence repair and maintenance are 9,500. There was no additional items for the remaining lines. Contingency, again, a budget plug here, moved down $1,917. Okay. In your capital reserve, as I mentioned before, we kept it flat year over year in total. There was the 24,000 was not being put back into operating from discretionary. And we'll get to a capital contribution slide here in a minute. Deferred maintenance, this is tree trimming, power washing, gutter cleaning. That's going to stay the same year over year. So in total, your operating expenses and reserves, reserve expenses increased $180,076, a total of 11% increase in expenses. And there's a footnote down there at the bottom. Next, I can't see it. There it is. So the footnote reads, if you remove the increase in insurance due to claims and industry-wide increases, along with the increase in capital contributions, the result would be a decrease in the net year-over-year percentage change in operating expenses. So again, if you remove those two items, the net decrease is 0.2%. So let's call it flat. Year over year, all those other items were flat. All right. And in this environment, is pretty good. All right, it really is. Unfortunately, that, you know, the 10,000-pound gorilla on this page is that insurance number. So, next slide, please. So you had, again, weighted average increase for 2024, $44, 32 of which is your insurance. That's a total of 13.92%. And again, so some of you are saying, well, why did I live in a townhouse. Why did I go up so much more? The insurance premium line, again, you're part of what's called a variable budget. Sometimes they're fixed costs. So like your trash pickup is a fixed cost per unit. It's the same for everybody across the community. However, inside the condo, insurance is based on the average square footage of your unit type. The townhouse has the largest square footage. They're going to take the brunt of that variable expense. So again, so you have your townhouse, I believe it's your manors, and then your single families. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, right? You would think the standalones had more square footage. They actually don't, they're smaller. So again, if you're a townhouse owner or a manor and you want more in-depth information, or you want an explanation, I'll be more than happy to do that. But again, that's the way the variable budget from the very beginning of this community was set up. That line is, based on your governing documents, is variable. So, next slide, please. So here's an important slide that I think everybody needs to know and everybody needs to see, is that the budget and finance and the board, the contribution for 2024 was supposed to be $863,000, right? The contribution for 2024 is going to be flat year over year. And the reason this was done was because when we did the cash flows, the next couple phases of the roofing project, which are the major projects in the community, our cash flows are still good to cover it, okay? However, with all of the work that's coming in the next 10 years with siding and roofing, at some point here over the next year or so, the board's gonna have a tough decision of, we're gonna have to ramp that up or take a different approach through an association loan, or there's a lot of different options which are on the table that we're talking about right now. So if the schedule would have been followed and the contribution made, it would have increased your assessment by another $28 this year. And with the insurance hit being so large, and with the way the policy is structured now with a $100,000 deductible, our claims that are submitted should be very low. So all of these nuisance claims that are, you know, a leak or a hot water heater or whatever it is that are $20,000, $30,000, they're going to hit your homeowner's policy. And then if it goes over the $100,000, hits our policy, the association's policy. So our claims turned in, our loss runs should shrink drastically. Okay. That's the idea behind that. If our claims shrink drastically, okay, our premiums when we go out to bid, we're no longer hopefully a high-risk client. We then can get into some competitive bids. When you only have one bidder coming in and you can't go without insurance, it's a tough pill to swallow. So the goal here is to get those claim history down and continue forward and work towards next year of trying to get the premium at the very least to stay flat. Okay, that's our goal. But this capital contribution, this is your projection over the next 10 years of what's needed to be able to do all of your projects. And on the right column, that is your monthly assessment increase impact that would take place. So again, they're large numbers, all right, but that's what it would take to be able to do the projects that are needed to be done, need to be done in the condo. We are working on ways of smoothing that out over time, extending that out over time via loans or whatever we can do. As we get more information, we'll communicate that to you. All right, next slide, please. So we're going to move into the WOA portion, and then we'll open up for questions on condo and WOA. And the way the board wanted to structure it this year is that we'll take questions tonight. We'll let you digest this for the next, I think it's 4 days. We're meeting again Monday night at which if you have additional questions, feel free to ask them. And then the board will vote to approve or not approve the budget on Monday night. Okay, so again, a little bit of a, give you some time to digest this. If you have any questions. In the meantime, if you have anything specific and you can't make Monday night or you want something answered, you come out here, email me. Email me. My email's, it's controller@gwmonroe.net. Very easy to find. You can always call in to get it. And I will respond with an answer as long as, if possible. So we're going to move on to the WOA portion. So with 1,607 homes in this community, they're all WOA members. Okay, 1,194 in Greenbrier, 413 in Whittingham. Your WOA common elements include maintenance of the town center and amenities, your pools, tennis courts, bocce courts, shuffleboard courts, pickleball courts, and more. Also from the employee standpoint, you have an employee payroll and benefits for management, recreation services, custodial, and maintenance. We're also responsible for the repair, maintenance, and replacement of the community gates, your gate guard services, roads and parking lots, an on-site nurse, 24/7, 365, and more. Next slide. So I say this every year, and I get some questions usually afterwards, and I think some individuals and some residents forget that, we are a small business, we're an employer as well as a community, and that we has to be taken into account every year when we do this budget. The employees keep this place moving. So that's a big part of our budget, not forgetting that we are a small, not-for-profit business. We're looking at roughly a staff of 22 for 2024 after the outsourcing of the guards. And as we'll get into some employee reductions, some retirements and things of that nature, we're down to 22 for 2024. We also have numerous long and short-term contracts. Again, we'll go through those. Vendor relationships from general contracting to investment banks. External budget factors this year, as we discussed, insurance. Healthcare costs, the benefits for the employees continue to rise. For those of you that pay for your own benefits, you see this as well. It unfortunately is it's an industry that's just continuing to take a beating. Minimum wage, this is the last of the scheduled hikes, but from the state of New Jersey. I fully expect another schedule to come out in January, February, once this one takes place. So we'll manage that when time comes. So minimum wage went up from $4.13, is going to go up to $5.13, an increase of 7% in January. Internal budget factors, insurance claims increased, insurance premiums, aging community in need of increased maintenance. So again, as we're hitting that cycle into 30 plus years as a community, you start to see more maintenance needed, between the overgrowth of the general grounds and all the shrubs and trees. And we start to see these projects taking place now that have not occurred in the past. Completed in 2023, street signs, the stained glass room upgrades and wood shop flooring, repairs to pickleball court number 4, the WOA Safety Committee and Pedestrian Lane Safety Committee put into place the pedestrian lane and crosswalks and a speed camera, a major emphasis on new activities and community involvement, example, the Family Day, extensive stormwater repairs, again, a system that is aging and it needs quite a bit of work. The initial design drawings for the outdoor pool renovation, repairs to tennis courts 1 and 2, the town center long-term parking lot, conversion of court 3 to tennis and pickleball, conversion of streetlights to LED, new poker tables, and 40 new chairs for the front multi-purpose room. Probably the most important thing we're going to do in 2024 is to get a new reserve study to get a clear outlook at the future and exactly what it's going to cost us to do projects like the pool, to do projects like the tennis courts, get a new fresh look at this. Costs from 2019 and 2020 in the labor side and the material side. Some of the industries and some of those costs have doubled since then. So we need a engineering firm to come in and do a new study. Very important now from my standpoint to be able to project out and look at the future. We need that study done. Outdoor pool renovations, planning and budget process at some point during the year will most likely kick back in. Gate arm operator rebuilds, replacements, including concrete. I know we're having quite a few issues with the gate arm operators. They're again aging and need to be replaced. So you have the next slide, please. So we have here is the summary of all of those detail lines that you have in front of you. If you're a Greenbrier resident, it's in the back of your packet. Same with the condos. Every line, I believe there's a 2-page insert in there with all of the details. Again, reference that if you have any questions, we can go over that. As far as the revenues for WOA, again, there was an additional $269,000 needed for from assessments this year in order to maintain our operating expenses. Contributions from surplus, just like the rest of, we've been running a very lean budget. There's really no surplus to put back in. And you might see in your portal or the financials from the third quarter, you might see retained earnings in there of $100,000 or $115,000. And you might say, well, why can't we use that? Well, the reason being is if we use that and we draw that down, we have no liquidity. And while our revenue streams throughout the year are pretty flat, pretty consistent, our expenses are not. Our expenses will peak. There's peaks and valleys, especially in the spring when landscape kicks back in. We are spending more cash every month than we are bringing in the initial, and then it goes back down. So you have a revenue line that's straight and an expense line that goes up and down. You have to have liquidity, and we'll lean on that liquidity in the surplus. That's what we'll lean on. We'll use that surplus to be able to handle the cash flows. And then by the end of the year, typically, if you're on budget, it levels itself back out. But you have to have that cushion or that liquidity in order to be able to operate. So what we have here again, so you have a total revenue of $4,772,028, all right, for the year. The general administration, which we'll get to, increased by a $177,633, mainly insurance. Clubhouse, we were able to reduce expenses, overall expenses for the clubhouse by $71,000. We'll get to the detail in a minute. Activities and maintenance. Activities is always budgeted to zero out. We never, and it comes pretty close. We've had a couple years where the activities, we lost a little bit of money here and there, but the expectation is that money going out, money coming in, balance each other out every year. The maintenance department, every member of the maintenance staff is a billable. And again, you get a resident servants. When you do the resident services, you get a bill if they do work in your home. So basically the idea there is that maintenance department is billed out and to where there's a zero budget hit to your assessment. When they do association work, it finds it. So if they did association work in Greenbrier in the grounds, you would see that expense in the Greenbrier grounds. It's pocketed where it should be. So again, that's a zero for the year. Gate guards, overall, the expenses for the year are going to come down by $6,546. That's mainly because of and we'll get to the detail of the guard contract, which was a very low increase year over year. Grounds and landscaping, we went up $20,000. Again, we'll get to the detail. And contingency was a small change of $112 decrease. Replacement reserve, our total replacement reserve contribution for the last 5 years, each year has been $378,000. We have been using discretionary funds to offset that and reduce that contribution from operating to help reduce the assessment each year. Again, with home sales slowing down, the total discretionary balance is shrinking year over year because of the reduced home sales. So we have to be careful that discretionary is a very important piece of the financial budget and the financial tool that if an emergency project comes up or there is a new initiative from the board and the community that's outside the regular budget, approved budget, this is where we would go. So we can't draw too far down on that. It's kind of also like a rainy day fund where, again, if we run into an emergency, we have to be able to fund that quickly. And that's what the discretionary will help us do. Stormwater management, this system is old and needs a lot of work. To put it very simply, we have done a ton of work. And if you look in the balance sheet, the actual reserve is negative. It actually owes money to other reserves, particularly the discretionary reserve. So we've been in a negative operating budget for the last couple of years, and I can't really get into the details of why, because there's current litigation going on, obviously, with that, but it's necessary for us to increase. That is a crucial, critical system that needs to keep flowing and needs to keep working. So we need to continue to do more maintenance and work on that. Your total operating expenses and reserves for 2024 budget are $4,772,028. Your monthly maintenance for the WOA portion is going to move up from 230 to 244. So let's break down each of the departments. Let's see where the increases and major decreases were. First are the administration salary, taxes, benefits. This is all HR, everything rolled in. The cost of living adjustment for the employees was 3%. That was roughly the CPI index for this region in August when we began this process. I think many of us feel inflation is still quite a bit higher than that, especially when we're at the grocery store, but that's the benchmark that we use. There is an employee reduction plan for 2024. One of our part-time employees is going to will no longer be here. So on top of that, a 12% increase in medical rates, as I discussed before, from 2023 to 24. Insurance premium, the increase for the year is $155,833. Just a massive number inside the premium for WOA. Again, we've talked about this. We share a policy. It's a shared policy because if each association had a separated policy, you would have been paying double a long time ago. Because it's a shared policy, it works together. So the property lines within this, again, massive increases, no different than the condo. The contract for nursing, standard 3% increase based on the contract for this year. That was a $10,000 increase in expenses. Property management software, tech support, and website. So many of you are going to start to see, and we've kind of had the luxury of e-checks and ACH is being free for a long time. Many industries are starting to put a charge on that e-check and ACH. You're going to start to see this. So what ended up happening is our provider, as of July 1st, was charging us $1 per house per month for the ACH. So there were two choices. Either we tried to quickly move over to another service, like our bank, but our bank doesn't offer it, okay? So we kind of were stuck with it. We tried to negotiate out of the fee, but it was a standard thing. There was nothing we could do. Every client globally, I think they have 30-some thousand clients, was being hit with this. Started to do a little research on the industry, and this is going to become a standard. You're going to start to see this a lot. I think some of you, when you pay your utilities via ACH, are starting to see like $1.95. It's little things like this are going to pop up. It's no longer going to be a free luxury item for us. We are doing a transition from our current banks to an association bank. Our association bank is all they do is they work with associations, and that's it. They do have a reduced cost feature inside this. The only issue with it currently is that the integration between their software and our software is not clean. They're working on it. So do I push for the switch before it's clean, which kind of muddies up all logistics? Something I'm keeping an eye on. Once the bank, if they are free or reduced and they sync up with our software well and it's clean, we'll make the move. We'll make the move to reduce those costs. Just right now, it's not ready at this point. We have not, since I started here in 2017, our internal hardware that runs our servers and a lot of the tech side of things, and the more tech that we use, it requires more bandwidth. And we ran into a situation where we were going basically off the same type of line that goes into your home. It's coaxial. It's copper in the ground, coaxial that comes into your ground. That was failing in the clubhouse. We went to a voice over IP for the phones. We've upgraded some of the technology between the cameras and the servers, and it started to fail repeatedly on us. We would go down here in the clubhouse. There are fiber optic across the street. There's one connection in this community for fiber optic. It's across the street, across Whittingham Drive, and that's being brought into the building. Now, for those of you that have ever converted to fiber optic commercially, it's expensive. It's very expensive. So, but in order for us to maintain the bandwidth that was necessary to maintain our systems and to operate, we had no choice but to switch to the fiber. So our subscription, our monthly rates are going to go up because of it. It's Comcast, and it's, you know, we can try and fight with them, but who are we really to take on Comcast? So that's where you're going to see a little bit of increase. Again, we're at a tech cycle. We're gonna have to hit that for the next couple of years. All other items, all the budget lines in general administration of 148,500. There were no other major. There was a couple small items, again, in your detail of $6,500. Overall, for this department was a 10% increase, but 8.8% of the 10 was insurance. So overall, this department, 1.2% increase. In Clubhouse, so you're going to see a lot of movement here because at the beginning of 2023, custodial was pretty much fully staffed in-house. So from 2023 to 2024, our budget for that line has dropped $261,000. And that budget also includes Monica leaving tomorrow. So that is a reduction in that line there. So combined between the outsourcing of the custodians and 3% increase again for the remaining employees and the 12%, the net on that was $261,000. Again, the details of that are inside that handout. You have pool management and repair and maintenance. This is the contract. So our contract is based, really, it moves from year to year based on the minimum wage movement. So our contract moved up 7% because the minimum wage moved up 7%. That's built into the contract. I don't know exactly what they pay their staff, but obviously it's pinned to the minimum wage. So we will see a $14,000 increase in that line for 2024. Commercial custodial services. So this is where we moved from in-house staff to 3 full-time positions outsourced to planned. Now, these were retirements. So we had custodians that retired, and instead of going on the job hunt in a market that is very expensive to replace employees right now, very expensive to maintain healthcare, it was economically sound to go with planned companies. And I believe so far that has gone very well with them. So you'll see a $167,000 increase in that line. All other budget lines totaling $443,000 were no additional major financial impact items. Overall, for this department is a decrease of 5.1% or $71,000. Next would be the grounds landscaping, and I think this is a little low, might be behind everybody's head. Grounds and landscaping, general grounds maintenance, we increased from 20,000 to 30,000. Again, this is the aging community. You know, and I said to the board in the budget and finance, based on what I'm looking at, this line could go to 100,000 and we still use it every year. There's a lot of work to be done, and we'll keep an eye on that. And if it needs to continue moving up the community, this needs to be done. This is not really an optional account at all. Irrigation equipment, repair and maintenance. Over the last year, we have hit, I don't know if it's just a valley in this, but it is, we saw this wide scale like failures of the system in the piping and the heads and everything else. It could just be the age, it could be the time, but based on history, we had to move this back. We had to move it up from 15,000 to 25,000. All other budget lines of $279,500. There were no additional changes. This particular department went up 6.4%. Next slide, please. The gate guard contract, year over year, the total financial, increase or total dollar increase is $3,358 year over year. What had happened is a 2% increase, but the original budget last year, so in these contracts, there's a healthcare subsidy. So if 6 employees pick up healthcare, it's a standard within this industry. We would pick up a small, a little bit less than half subsidy of that cost. The original budget last year was 6. it ends up being 4. So that's why you're going to see a very slight increase. You see, you have the 2% increase on the contract, but we've come down on the healthcare subsidy side. So again, year over year, the gate guard contract of increase of $3,358. There will be no gate guard salary, payroll taxes, benefits at all for 2024. Obviously, they're completely off of our payroll. They are. There was only, and again, in 2023 was the final payroll on some PTO and the final cleaning up of all the payroll for the security guards we did in January of 23. So that's the only reason you saw the 15,000 there from last year. Gate R&M, as I said before, we're seeing an uptick in need for maintenance and replacements. If we're able to replace many of the gate operators, this operating line will come down. But until that happens, we need to leave it in. All other budget lines within the gate guard are $10,700. Again, variance of $800. No additional major financial impacts. A 1.1% decrease in this department. Contingency, again, budget plug, $112 decrease. Replacement reserves, as I mentioned before, that's the full contribution to the reserve coming from operating. Stormwater management, we moved up. The total 2024 increase in operating and reserve expenses is $209,975, a 4.6 increase in expenses. However, if you remove the increase in insurance premiums due to claims and the industry-wide increases along with the increase in capital contributions, the result would be a decrease in the net year-over-year percentage change in operating expenses. Decrease is 0.3%. Again, I'll call it flat. Next slide, please. Okay, so the $14 increase within WOA, we moved from 230 to 244. Again, it is 6.09%. There's your history on the 5 years. Next slide. And then we come back to what is basically the story of the night is insurance. Okay, so insurance made up the bulk of your increase in condo and WOA, the overwhelming majority of the increase, and we've explained that. So at this time, we'll open up to questions on the condo and WOA. And if you're referencing a specific document, just obviously state your name, where you live, and what document that you're referencing.
Hello? Okay. Thank you, Sean. Now we'll open up the questions, and as Sean mentioned, we're going to do things a little differently. Tonight, you can ask questions, go over it, and then you have the opportunity to review it further and come back on December 4th, which at that time we'll be voting on the budget, and then you can ask additional questions. Okay?
Name is Carmine Campanella, 80 Leeds Lane. Under the clubhouse, I noticed that custodial services says contract. Last year's budget was $52,000, and this year's budget is $228,000.
Right.
And then as an aside there, you show 3 full-time positions outsourced to planned companies.
Right.
Number one, who are the 3 positions that you outsourced? And number 2, who is planned companies?
So we had 3 custodians. Again, we don't name specific employees if they haven't occurred yet, right? So we had 3 employees that retired, and instead, I explained this before, and instead of hiring them in-house in a labor market that's very difficult to find an employee, all right, at a competitive, really at a rate that we can afford, as well as maintain benefits for them, it made financial sense to outsource to planned companies. Planned companies is again, a service company that does janitorial, custodial work throughout the country.
Well, what I can't understand is, in this day and age where we're trying to save money, what do we need 3 more custodial people for $170,000?
We don't need, so if you look up on the budget, under clubhouse salaries, right? Look at the reduction there. $261,000 reduction in that line is now offset 3 employees plus Monica. We all know tomorrow's is her last day. All right, that's your reduction of $261,000. Those custodians had to be replaced. There wasn't an option to not replace them. Okay, so they're replaced with an outsourced company. So you have a $261,000 decrease and a $176,000 increase. So in the end of all of it, we netted out on the negative side.
Okay, the other question I have is, what was the budget last year for security? The gated, the people who worked at at the gate
As in last year, as in 2022.
in 2023, this year rather, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So that's on there as well.
Because we now contract our services, correct?
Yes.
And what is the difference between what we were paying and also as in regards to the benefits that we were paying them compared to now?
So the 2023 budget in total for total gate cards was $608,000. Our budget for 2024 for the whole department is $602,000.
Okay,
So
we don't owe any benefits to the people that are employed in the gated services anymore. Is that
so
correct?
as part of a standard, every single security company, you still have to, if they choose medical benefits, not ours, but they choose planned, you have to provide a subsidy to them. That's a standard throughout the industry. Our subsidy is $450 a month. Okay, so you don't, again, that's a standard. Now, if they were in-house, triple, quadruple that. Okay. So, yeah, as you can see, if we were to go back and look at the history of the gate guard department, the increases within that department, mainly because of the age of the employees, medical benefits have been skyrocketing. Our typical increase is anywhere between 8 and 12% a year over the last 5 to 10 years. This, we're actually looking at a decrease in total expenses year over year right now. And the built-in contract increase is 2%. So when you start to take the curve of the contract versus in-house, it's separating rapidly, right? And to the point where even after a year and a half or 2 years, there's probably a 15 to 20% difference in the two.
Okay, one last thing I want to say is that you show on the charts there, activities like pickleball and the tennis courts and bocce courts,
Mhm.
okay? And then you put the word "and more." There's one activity that's not listed there, which I am in charge of, and that is called the Garden Club. There are 36 gardens, and we take care of everything ourselves. We pay for everything ourselves. Okay, and I would like it put in the budget that there are supplies that we need for next year. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hello. My name is Arkady Gulinov. I live 79 C Winthrop Road, which is a townhouse. Yep. And rather than go to specific questions about numbers, I want to have just general remarks. Specific question I want to pass to board members, especially who lives in Whittingham section, and I'm gonna give them assistance. I do have some background in construction back in Ukraine. I worked as civil engineer for 16 years and 25 years here in United States in accounting and finance, including budgeting, payroll, and so on. So I know how to manage numbers. I volunteer to give them a hand. So, but for generally speaking, if you look at the increase in Whittingham, and you're gonna see that it's always up. Last year, 10%, this year, more than 11%. And if you look at proposed, it's gonna be 12, 15% increase every year. So, and people who live in Whittingham supposed to run out. That's the only way. Just sell your house and buy something at Greenbrier, because Greenbrier, it's manageable. But increase 10% every year, So you're not gonna handle it. And I start looking at that insurance problem. And my understanding just increase $400 for my unit per year. Just increase. And I have friends in Greenbrier, and I look at their insurance, and I saw their insurance less than $800 per year. And my insurance currently is 400. Plus, I need to, we didn't mention, but to cover that 100,000 deductible, I call Allstate. It's gonna cost me $127. So my impression, if I insure by myself without condo association, it's gonna be twice cheaper. I don't know, we need that insurance because it's goes through the roof, and anyhow, it twice as much as it in Greenbrier. So, but that's what I said about my general remark. I don't want to go specific. I might have a lot of questions to numbers here, but they don't tell me anything because I need to see background. I need to go through real numbers. Okay, but my general proposal here, because we have a good, system here, like Zoom. I hope it's recorded today. Meeting, it's gonna be posted, correct? Okay, so it's that's new technology. My proposal that we all deserve to see what's going on, not in open meetings, but in closed meeting with our board. They can translate this, whatever it's open to public, what is not confidential, it's not many question confidential. I just want to see, and I believe everybody want to see. When they have closed meeting, board meeting, just translate, please. We're going to see who is doing what and how they're going to negotiate prices. And my, whatever I want to pass to guys, you need to look very carefully because we're going to lose people here in Whittingham. Like my neighbor, her husband just died. She cannot afford it right now. And for, 11% increase this year, 10 last year. And whatever I see, it's going to be 12, 15% every year increase. So we're going to have like triple maintenance comparing to Greenbrier. So even though Greenbrier now look like their house is more expensive, but in fact, Whittingham pays more. Okay, an increase in maintenance means decrease in our equity cost of our units. So that's general remark.
My name is Debbie Harback and I live at 16 IMB Winthrop. I have a question and then two comments. My first question is the 2023 budget. How does that compare to the 2023 actual expenditures? And how do we as homeowners get to see that?
That's in your portal. You have the financials are in your portal.
In the portal? Okay,
Yes.
is there a projection out to the end of the year?
Yes, should be
Okay,
in there.
thank you. I didn't know
If you
that.
can't find it, reach out to us.
Okay.
We'll get that to you.
Okay, and my comment really has to do with if I understand what that gentleman was saying. I understand all the needs for the increases, but as a townhouse owner, I got a $65 increase. But because of the $100,000 problem with the insurance, I got a $109 increase on my homeowners. On top of that, I took 50,000 additional, which was the maximum we were allowed to get from the insurance company, and that was another $9. So as a homeowner, I'm not getting a $65 increase. I'm getting almost $200. And as a resident that has been here 3 years last month, that makes my association charges or maintenance charges have gone up 110% since I've moved here. And something's got to be done to replace that because thank God my husband still works. When he retires, we would not be able to keep that up.
Debbie, did you go to the condo meeting? Were you
No, I
there?
did not, but
Okay.
Jamie explained to me thoroughly about, and I understood a lot of what Jamie said, and I went back to my insurance agent and discussed with my agent.
Okay,
The
good.
point is not,
No,
I
no,
understand what it's all
That's-
about.
Yeah, you made a good point inside there that we didn't bring up tonight with the $100,000 deductible, and I think it
Okay.
might be on the document that's in the back. It certainly was discussed at the meeting. That $100,000 deductible, we moved from 10 to $100,000. That wasn't optional. That wasn't by choice. That was the only option we were given. If we didn't take that, we didn't have a policy. You made a good point. I wanted to
No,
clarify.
okay, and all I'm stating is that as, we can understand what you guys are going through and what the board is going through and why these increases happen. But you have to understand as a homeowner, I've faced 100% increase since I moved here in our maintenance charges, and that's not easily swallowed. So if people have a lot of questions and people are upset about it, you have to understand
Sure,
what we're facing. So I just wanted to bring up both sides of the coin.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Eileen Carpenter, 23A Rutland. I just wanted to ask a question about the reserves. So in the condo, we are putting 700,000 into reserves? Is that what we have?
You are putting,
I'm not asking Greenbrier, I'm asking the condos.
you are 726,000 a year, yes. 726,000.
Okay, so is that the total amount in our reserves?
No, that's the total contribution for the year.
Okay, how much is in our reserves?
That's on the balance sheet. Off the top of my head, I don't have it. It's around 1.8, 1.9.
Million?
Yes.
Okay, so how much is recommended to be there?
That would be on the reserve study. And we're right at the recommendation for this year. So
So we
Um,
have 1.9 million.
I would have to look up the final number, yes. But
Okay.
yes, we are on schedule as of the end of 2023 for the reserve.
Okay,
2024 is going to be a different situation.
so when we did the roofs,
Yes.
I understand it cost over $1 million. And we did what? 10% of the roofs, 15% of the roofs?
I don't know the percentage.
I'm just, I'm trying to relate.
We did a third. So
We did a
it's
third of the
it's a
roofs.
3-phase roofing plan. It was $1.1 million for phase 1. Obviously, it's going to vary depending on what phase 2 and phase 3 entail, the size of the roofs, and then also the cost of shingles has gone up and other materials. So
But is that in the budget?
So,
it's
so
in capital.
it's in capital. So we would have to sit down and go over the capital reserve and I would explain that to
Okay.
you. That's different.
Can I ask that we go through the capital because that seems to be a lot of the optional stuff and where all our
So-
money is going?
It's.
I mean, we've got that.
So it's quite the opposite.
Let me
the-
finish,
the-
please.
No, but I want to correct something you said. Everything in the capital reserve study, it's not optional. It's required. It's mandatory. Those are your capital replacements for items that have to. The board has a fiduciary responsibility to make sure those capital reserve and replacements take place. They're not optional.
I know they're not, I'm going to give you one example, okay? We did the roof here and we put in solar panels and we spent a lot of money doing solar panels. And I asked a question about it and I was told it was planned, okay? I don't know whether everybody here was told about it and how much more it would cost. And maybe we didn't really need the solar panels. Maybe we did and maybe we didn't. I don't know. But these are questions that I have in my mind and we never talk about this at the
So,
budget.
When the solar panels were installed,
Yes.
at that time, we did at least 3 meetings. We went into extensive detail about what's going on, the production offsets and all of that. If you personally would like that, I can put it all together.
I would.
That's not, and just to let everybody know, that solar was a 7-year finance deal that I negotiated because as a nonprofit, we're not entitled to the tax credits that come with the solar. So what I did is I worked with Univest and the state of New Jersey, and instead of the construction loan being at 9 or 10%, I negotiated it down to 1.9% over the 7 years. Okay. So instead, we didn't lose out on the credit. We gained it back and then some.
Okay.
And I did that before interest rates went up. So We actually netted out on the deal. So it's a 7-year payment. And what happens after 7 years, once that's paid off, and I believe we're in year 3 at this point, what happens is you have a slight decrease in production offset inside your electrical bills. Actually, if you look on the budget detail, I think we went down by $17,000 in electricity usage this year. That's the offset, direct offset coming from the panels. On top of that, you build up credits every year. The total credits that we're going to build up every year will be about $30,000. So what happens is the net of the loan payments, I'll net the credits versus the loan payments. And I can do a supplemental schedule on this if you really want. I mean, I could post it to your owner portals. Very simple, easy to do. After year 7, we're in the black on this. We are, we're getting, we have no loan payments, we're getting credits, and we're getting production offset. And we have a guarantee for 25 years on the production of the panels. So from year 7 to 25 is in the black.
So going back to the reserves, as far as WOA goes, how much reserve do we have? Not what we're contributing, but what do we
Right.
have and what are we supposed to have?
So the WOA budget for the capital side is below right now, mainly because the reserve study, the drastic increase from COVID, right? So just to give you a 2019, the total replacement cost of everything in the reserve study for WOA was 5.9 million. The latest study, which is still in draft form, and we're going to end up going to another engineering company to redo, was 9.6 or 9.7. That was a 61, I believe 61% or more than that, almost maybe 80% increase from one study to the next. Now,
Right.
our annual contribution is $378,000. That
Okay.
annual contribution really right now should be closer to 600,000 or 700,000.
But-
Should be. And it will have to be next year, one way or another. The board and I are going to work on a way to, there's things that need to be done, right? So we have to be able to finance those and figure out how to do that. That is a major, major piece of 2024.
Okay, because I have heard statements, the pool needs to be done.
Sure.
We were digging into our reserves when we did the indoor pool. Okay, and people may be assessed. So that's why I'm asking these questions about the reserves. You say what
So-
we're putting in, you're not telling us
So
what's
we,
there.
if, again, there's multiple phases to this. If you want the pool and the tennis courts all done within 18 months, then yes, there would have to be an assessment. There's no way around that. Okay, we don't have the reserves for that. So, but you can't, if we want to reserve for them over a 5-year period, we could build it into the annual contributions. And then in the year 5, 6, 7, we could start those projects. Again, this is something the board's going to be, we're going to be working on this year. Everybody knows, you know, that the pool, especially the outdoor pool, is the original, right? It's
Okay.
outdated. It needs work. However, we still need to make our COVID adjustment to our capital reserves in WOA. It is the number one topic.
So
of
we
WOA
are
this year.
below.
Oh, we are
Okay.
absolutely below.
Okay.
Yeah.
May I respectfully request, and I don't know if this is out in the air, can we, when we do these budget meetings, also look at our capital plan?
Sure.
expenditure?
And if you need to, it's in your portal.
Okay,
it's
but
in there.
I think it would be good to review here because I think that's a big part of things and, you know, we spend a lot of money there
Sure.
and we don't even
And-
talk about it. And-
But you know what we can do? Well, the reserves, I think the reserves studies are posted online. That's really what you want to look at the reserve studies. But what I'll do is Monday night, we'll come back and listen, if you haven't seen a reserve study before, it's somewhat easy to understand, but not for everybody. So what we'll do is I'll bring the reserve studies. I'm not going to print them out for everybody. I'll put a portal. They're lengthy like the presentation. It's really a waste of paper. But we will go over that. I'll do another little presentation on Monday night. I'll explain kind of how it all works. The list of transactions that take place within that are very lengthy, so I'll abbreviate them into the subtypes, which we did for the Budget and Finance Committee during the review process, got to see that. So I'll do that Monday night. That's a good point.
Okay, thank you very much. One last thing, the legal fees for the merger of the boards.
Yes.
Is that in the budget
So
or is
so-
that in capital? Where is
No,
that?
it's not capital. That's not a capital item. So in 2019, when we started this process with the merger and your dear husband was with us when we started that initial process, he was a big part of that. we had said, because the hope was it would be done soon, the extraordinary expenses related to the merger would be put through if they busted the budget. Let's say they were so far over that it hurt our bottom line at the end of the year. We would fund that via discretionary. And that's what I've had to do a couple of the years, is that in particular this past year. So what I'm going to try to do is the actual operating budget for legal will be pretty much spot on to what it says. All of the overages, again, these extraordinary items, that's what your discretionary fund is really for, is to help you catch all of those. So I'm putting it through that because given what's going on from a financial standpoint, it's so unpredictable. And you don't really want to put unpredictability inside your budget. So that's where we're at with that.
So I would also respectfully request, and I do this in my home budget. I know it's nowhere near what you got here. But when I know I'm going to have a big expense here and I have a little extra money here, I'm going to take the money from here. I'm going to throw it there. I'm not going to use all this money.
Correct.
And there are things that, I mean, I'm not going to say our community doesn't look beautiful, because it does. But there are things that we do that we really don't have to do in this time with all the expenses that are coming up and the things that we have to do. We don't always need new chairs. You know, there are things like that. It's only $10,000, but 10,000 and 10,000 and 10,000 add up, and then you got 100,000. And I really, and you know, we don't see it in the budget. I'm sorry. We don't see it in the budget. But I think that even though you have money in the budget, if you don't really need something, okay, then don't spend it. Put it somewhere where we're
Well,
going to put it back in the reserves.
Eileen, continue to address the board with that. I mean,
So please,
we serve at the
about
pleasure
that
of the
when,
board.
when
so.
we buy new chairs, when, you know, that circle is lovely. I think it's beautiful. Did we need it? No, I don't think we had to spend $10,000 on it because we didn't need it. And $10,000 is $10,000. And that's all. So, I'm sorry.
Marcia Forrest, 11 Whitehall Road. I'm going to pick up on where Eileen left off. I don't think anybody in this room tonight is happy, whether you live in Greenbrier or in the condos, about the increases. I'm looking at the budget and I'm seeing things. I think you've all heard the expression, we're getting nickeled and dimed. And there are things on here that in essence don't amount to much, $5,000 here, 10, but I don't understand why they're here, and I'd like some explanations.
Sure.
First of all, I'd like to understand, you said that we have 22 employees.
Yes.
Okay, does that include people like you, Jamie, and all the people upstairs and the staff, or?
Sure.
Okay, so if we have 22 employees, I'm curious about why under operating expenses, we have compensation for administration to the tune of $890,400.
That includes taxes, benefits,
Yeah,
HR, all of it.
Yeah,
Yes.
but then we have compensation for the clubhouse. So you didn't add the salaries for administration with the salaries for this is where I'm confused. Who would be,
It's-
and you don't have to give me names.
It's by department.
By the what?
By department. The employees that belong to or work for the specific departments are put in their department's budget. There's
Okay.
no,
Okay,
we don't have a payroll department. It's, if you work in administration, you're in the administration department in that budget.
okay, and that would be somebody like you.
That's
and-
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the people who work for,
Custodial, concierge work.
okay, so
they are in
that's why
clubhouse.
you didn't combine the two, because this one is almost $1 million. And, okay, I think I understand that. So now let's talk about the nickels and dimes. First of all, I'm confused about, I know that the restaurant doesn't pay us. We've already discussed this ad nauseum. But why are we spending $20,000 last year and the coming year for equipment, and also $5,000 for repairs and maintenance? Aren't they responsible
So-
for anything?
The equipment line is not for the restaurant. That's for, in general, for the clubhouse. That line has been that way for 20 years, labeled the same in Clubhouse. That's just general equipment.
Nothing
Let's
to-
say a server goes down and we have to replace the server. That hits that line. That has nothing to do with the restaurant. The
Okay.
restaurant R&M for 5,000, those are still our assets in there. So if it is if our assets break down, okay, it's not a repair, and Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong. If it's a slight repair or maintenance issue that's caused by the restaurant and their employees, they would cover it. This is when our assets either fail or need service. That's our responsibility. That's what that $5,000 budget line is.
Okay, legal fees. So
Yes.
now we went up $5,000 to $20,000. Is that all having to do with investigating or researching the possibility of a merger between the two boards?
No, so like I said, I just mentioned before, when those expenses exceed our budget, so with the lawsuit and with the merger and all of that, when they exceed our operating budget, I will, if it busts the budget on the bottom line, let's say we went over 10,000 there, but we were under 10,000 somewhere else, I would leave it in. It doesn't make sense to hit the reserve, the discretionary reserve, right? So what we increased that because whether or not the merger, consolidation, whatever you want to call it, takes place, we have to do additional work for our governing documents.
Okay,
So
why are we doing that before we even ask the community if they want to merge?
Well, what I have in this operating budget is, has to be done. Our documents are outdated. This is work that has to be done.
Wait, I'm sorry,
So
I'm being a
the-
little obtuse. What has to be done?
the updating of the documents, the governing documents.
Oh,
with or-
whether we merge or not?
Whether we
okay,
merge or not, have to
okay.
be updated.
And that's where we're paying the lawyers
Yes.
by the hour.
What's that? Yeah, the merger, that's not a question for me. That's not.
No, I understand.
The merger question is not really, for
I just
Sean.
wanted to
That
know
would
what
be- No, I
the,
understand, but you brought it up, so the community has been talking about it for years and years. And it seems the majority of the community is in favor of it.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Have you
But-
polled the community? I've been living
Yeah.
here since 2001 and
Yeah.
everybody I know is not in favor of it. So
we-
don't give me the majority unless you've done a poll. What are you talking about?
Okay, it's not the time for discussion, but the answer is yes, and we can bring this up at another time.
Well,
It's a
then don't
budget.
make a
It's a
statement that you
budget.
can't back
but-
up.
I could say the same for you, but I'm not here to argue with you. over
Well,
it.
then don't, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, what about $3,000 for meeting expenses?
So that would be your open and closed meetings, okay?
And what's the
it's-
charge for?
You have the Zoom. The Zoom has a subscription to it, which we need for the meetings. Okay, you have whether there's refreshments in the back at the meetings. It's the annual meeting we have. There's all these expenses throughout the year.
What besides Zoom? What?
I just said the refreshments at the back of the
Oh,
room.
refreshments. Okay,
So
okay. You answered that. Okay, refreshments. Okay, custodial, restaurant. Okay, I think we are being nickeled and dimed. I think that there are ways to consolidate some of these expenses, and I don't think you've tried hard enough. Thank you.
Evening. My name is Gubby, Gubby Rao, RAO. I have come very recently, maybe third month in this, community. I really enjoyed this community very, very well. We like this place. We thank you very much, welcoming us. So previously, when I was in the other place, it's called Wineland, South Jersey. I used to pay less than $1,000 per month, per year for house owners premium. So I had almost like a 3,000 square foot house, half acre land, backyard. For last 18, 20 years, I used to pay less than $1,000 per year. Now I have seen here is something like $1,500 per condo. It is very much high.
You're
And
talking
we
about,
also absorb,
you're talking about the capital contribution that's made at the time of purchase, right? Is that
no,
what you're
sir,
referencing?
I'm talking about my money, my dollars, what I used to pay for the insurance premium.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So the premium was less than 1,000, but here I'm going to pay living in a condo, $1,500 per annum. It is almost like 50% increase for me. And the area and all those things, it's beautiful, but not comparable at all to the one I used to live. So, and $63 is, the monthly fee has increased. It is something like $756. So with all these things, I think it is, the budget has to be really looked into it. I'm a CPA, whole life I'm CPA. I prepared lots of budgets, lots of financial statements, and so many things. The first thing is how to cut the budget, how to cut the cost. In seeing all these things, apart from the insurance, I don't see what efforts have been taken to reduce in any line items to a reasonable level so that we can be happy to see there is some budget cut.
So if you lived here 5 years ago, we took extensive measures to create a lean budget inside the condo. You have, the board here has a fiduciary responsibility. There are minimum threshold and services that you're obligated to give the community. We are sitting at that minimum right now for the majority of that budget. If you cut that budget further outside of insurance, you start to drop below what you're required to do for the community. Now, there are a couple of options in there, and I'll give you one that we've looked at and that we did in the past, and I say we, the board did in the past, is they went to trash 1 day a week, right? Now, we did that, and it was globally hated throughout the community. All right? So again, you go back to 2 times. So we have, again, 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, when we first started digging in, there was a lot of excess inside that operating budget. We have cut that down to the bare bones right now, okay, inside the condo budget. If you go any further, you start to dip down below your minimum requirements as an HOA. So inside the condo, again, if you look at it, it's $44, on average, 32 of which is insurance. Most of the remaining is capital. There's not much more you can do before you start to drop below your responsibilities.
Yes,
So,
sir. I'm very new to this place.
yeah,
I
again,
have to learn a lot.
we went through this cycle about 5 years ago, and we're on until the insurance of the last 2 years. And again, capital's always going to be expensive in a small condo association. There's not a whole lot we can do about that. But we've been on a run where we've been able to pretty much be able to run flat or down for the remaining items. So point well taken. But you start to cut further into that condo budget, you drop below your minimum threshold.
Yeah, and then coming back to insurance, increasing insurance premium. You mentioned these communities, it is very hard for these communities to get insurance policy because of so many reasons. Have you compared with other 55 plus communities? Are they increasing their monthly fee by 60%, $60 or $100, something like that, because of insurance?
So we explain this too. It's a combination of factors, right? The industry in its whole has increased. And again, I think in that document that's in the back, it might give specific numbers to it. The industry in its whole, because of the events that have taken place in this country, is up substantially, whether it's 30 or 40%. On top of that, within that, you have low risk, mid risk, high risk clients. We're considered a high risk client because of our runs. So take the industry increase plus the bids coming in on a high risk. That's why it's so high. We can't really compare risk levels to other condos. We don't really have that information. I will tell you across the street, I think Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, announced yesterday it's $50, but I don't know their loss runs. I don't know their history. That's not something we're privy to. So,
Just for information, it's better to compare with other communities.
And-
how much they have increased?
And we do, we meet and we have a chart that's being put together that we maintain that looks at the entire community, or the entire township basically, and like communities. And again, we're not far off. I mean, we're on the low end on the Greenbrier side and we're in the middle on the condo side. So but it's apples to oranges. Every condo is different. So difficult task.
Yeah, the last one, please. Yeah, in this one, in the condo association budget, you have taken $24,000 increased for replacement reserve. What was necessity, $24,000? You have already more than $700,000, and we have got, to make some cuts here and there.
So that's capital. That's dictated by the reserve study. That's an engineer study that we have to follow.
Every year, are you adding some $24,000?
Yes, because the work that needs to be done in the condo. So, well, the 24,000 from year over year, last year we took 24,000 from our discretionary fund and helped reduce the operating contribution by $24,000. We don't have that in discretionary this year because again, home sales have slowed. We have other work that needs to be done. So that injection of funds from discretionary didn't take place this year. And it goes to the full capital contribution coming from operating. That's the only difference there. But that follows the reserve study, which is done by an external engineer.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Maria DeLucia, 85A Winthrop Road. I'm going to put a request into this board and to you, Sean, that we have more frequent meetings in which you give reports.
Yep.
This one time a year, meeting after meeting after meeting, I come and there's no treasurer's report or there's no controller's report, or you have nothing to report. And I don't think, even if you're home and it's on Zoom, we should be hearing from you more often than we are.
We've discussed that and established a more routine schedule. We have.
Good.
Yep,
That's
going forward.
definitely
Yep.
needed. And I think it would assist us all in understanding
Sure.
as things are happening.
And I'll add to that and say, you can contact me at any time. Like I'm just adding on top of it. If there's anything in between those presentations or those meetings, you can contact me. That's
And
not a
I
problem.
have, and you have answered my question. But I do feel that it would be very beneficial, at a minimum quarterly, if not more
We are.
often.
We are.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, and a woman asked me to ask this question as she couldn't stay any longer. It's not my question. The size of the chairs in the multipurpose room in the back that they had to cut tables. The new chairs that you guys replaced, there was just a comment. She asked me to ask that, so.
I'm not sure about cutting tables. The same number of tables are in the room. The chairs were requested for over a year by most of the ladies who play cards and use that room. So chairs were selected by the town center committee. They were given some options, some affordable options, and those were the chairs that were selected. So
Okay. I mean, as I said, it's not.
No,
my
I know,
question,
it's
so-
not yours.
All right.
It's tough.
They're comfortable, but they are very unwieldy and it's hard to move them around. That's my comment. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Sandra. Good evening, I'm Sandra Cohen, 9 Winthrop Road. I'm living in Greenbrier, Whittingham for over 20 years now. Yes, we've had raises recently, but for all the beginning of the 20 years I was living here, that particular board never raised it a dollar, and everybody was very, very happy. I just want to answer that gentleman who told me that I should move from Whittingham into Greenbrier because it would cost me less, except my taxes would be double. So you have to take that into consideration. The second thing is everybody wants whatever they want in Greenbrier. So when we're talking about doing things to make things look better, if the bocce people want a new, and I'm just using it for anything, want a new awning or want to do something, that is a very important thing to them. If the pool people, I'm a swimmer. I love to swim. The outdoor pool is terrible. I know there's not enough money to do that. So you have to wait till you have the money. But it's important to me. For the women that I know who never go to the pool, never swim, it's not important to them. So everybody's individual gratification wants to be taken into consideration, and they will push for that. So we all have to kind of understand it. I think it's outrageous that I'm getting such a gigantic raise. I'm here by myself. And one of the board members told me, well, you'll just have to move. Very coldly and very off the cuff, and didn't care what he was saying. And so the woman next to me, who's 90 years old, she said, Sandra, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, well, one of the board members said, you shall just have to move. And she broke out in tears. We're a very, very wonderful community. As I've said, I've been here all this time by myself. I would hate to think that there's such coldness in this community now. I really would hate to think that. The people who are working, Sean and Jamie and all of that, are working very, very hard to form a budget, to do whatever they want, to do whatever we want them to do. Everybody, there's 1,600 homes here. Look how many people are here in a meeting. This is an important thing. Be on a committee. When you don't know what's happening with the budget and finance, it's because you're not on a committee. When you don't know what's happening, who picked out the chairs, be on a town center committee, be involved in your community. Otherwise, as my late husband would say, you have no right to complain. Thank you. Have a very happy holiday, everybody.
Thank you very much. My name's Richard Antonacci, 28 Ardsley Place. I'm here 3 years and I've never met any of you people, by the way. So hello. The $2,000 that administrative fee that we contribute to moving here, where is it listed or?
So that goes to your, so you said you're Greenbrier, right?
Correct.
So each association has a fee, a capital contribution membership fee,
Mhm.
again, standard in HOAs across the country. That's what funds your discretionary fund.
Okay.
Okay.
And how long has it been $2,000?
2000, I believe, would have been, well, what was 1,500? And Greenbrier is 1,000.
Okay, my question
So-
is why so
so-
low? Why so low?
Well, so there's condo law that prohibits it going not over 9 times
Right.
of yours. So right now
So-
we're.
So right now mine is $2,000. That's a maximum it could go.
Yours would have been 2,500, I believe. Depends when you moved in, it changed.
Well, basically, why can't we raise it?
You can't because you're at the max of the condo. You're at the max of the law. 9 times is the max. So we did.
I understand figures.
So we did, in our governing documents, there is an inflation clause. And as long as
Right.
we can move it with the inflation every year if we wanted to, as long as it doesn't exceed the 9 times. It is something that we did the recent increase from 1,000 to 1,500 based on that clause. So, I mean, you don't want to go 1,500 to 1,560, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to, you do it every couple years. So we're keeping an eye on that.
Right,
And-
because I mean,
Yep, it's an easy one.
that's an
It's
easy
easy.
one.
Yep,
I
and
mean,
we did,
if
and we
it was
moved it.
me, I would bring it up to
And
10,000.
the condos have moved up as we're able to as well. So,
Yeah, and I was basically talking about the single resident homes.
yeah,
not
yeah,
the
we've,
condos.
so the Greenbrier is at its max.
Okay,
Woe is at its max right now,
okay, all right, I'm good.
pending
Thank you.
next year's, yeah,
Sean,
yes.
I have a Zoom question.
Okay.
From Wilmer Ortiz. He lives in the condos. His question is, I live in a townhouse that has a golf house designation, so I'm paying substantially more than townhouse owners without this designation. The $65 monthly increase is considerable. Has the board considered staggering the increase over a longer period of time?
It's a good question, but because they are direct operating expenses, mainly insurance. If we don't collect on time and we push them out, we cannot pay our insurance bill. So depends on the item. That's why the capital reserve is staggered over time for the work that needs to be done. However, an operating budget is meant to collect within that year, and that's an operating item. Any others?
Okay. Form? No. It's open forum.
It's only budget tonight, right?
Larry, or I just, I,
Oh. No, I know that, but I'm sorry, I have to make a comment, and I know it's budget, but I'm not going to get into detail as to what happened to us. However, and that's just to save you all time, I am making a strong request to the board that as a homeowner, if I am forced to have repairs done on my house by the board, the management, whoever it is, that as a homeowner, we are entitled to get an estimate, an appointment for that repair, and an itemized bill. Our recent issue, we were given none of that whatsoever. And I appreciate that some of the board stepped in on our behalf. There was a lot of misinformation relayed to the board about what happened. But again, we were not given the opportunity to get an estimate on our repair, a date of repair when they just showed up at my house unannounced, and I never got an itemized bill.
so
And again, as a homeowner, I think that's the least we deserve.
I hear what you're saying, and the board moving forward can certainly look at that differently. I want to be clear, just because I have heard some things that you've said to other residents. It was not a management decision.
Oh, I understand that. I understand that it was, the
The
point
board
is that
re-
the
the-
misinformation that was relayed, whether it came from the contractor to management to the board, there was
well,
complete and
it's-
total
so this-
misinformation about how long the repair took place.
Okay, we've discussed this, so this is open forum for the budget. If you want to sit down privately with the board and discuss, you certainly can. This is something that I think is fair. I know it's a concern of yours. I think that it'd be better because it's a personal issue and you can't go into it, better served to discuss.
That's why
with
I'm
the
not
board.
going into what happened, but I am going to get
Right, it's just
into,
very ambiguous for the audience, so it's
but I'm
something.
making a request as a
I
homeowner.
hear what you're saying.
And
I
it's a
just
public
want,
request that all homeowners should be entitled to. That's why I'm asking this in front of the entire board and in front of the community. It's the least that we could do is that if we are put in a situation that we are treated like homeowners, not, I don't even know what the word is. I don't want to use the word that's in my head as to the way felt I was treated through this whole thing. But again, I don't want to go there. But I just think that as a homeowner, as a person that's paying 600 and some odd dollars a month to have my house, that I should at least be given the courtesy that any other outside contractor would give as a homeowner. Thank you.
Dennis Caligera, 29C Rutland. I have a couple of questions. I think the first one probably would be more directed to Larry. When we're talking about insurance, there's a national, excuse me? We have a national crisis,
Larry,
and then we
can
have.
you use a mic?
Go ahead. Yes, sorry about
we
that.
have, we have a national crisis, and then we have the Greenbrier crisis. How much of the increase would you say is because of our claims here? Forget about nationally. How much of this increase is because of our extraordinary record here?
I don't sell insurance. I'm a property adjuster, but I can tell you if we were claim free, our increase probably would only be in about the 30% range, maybe 35%. Because that's what, the problem we have is what we spoke about is the structures are aging, the community is aging. It's in need of repairs, roofing's being done, siding's being done. But if we had no loss runs or we had minimal loss runs, or if our loss payments by our insurance companies didn't exceed the premiums collected, because that's how they base it, then we would have been insurable and at better risk, and our increase probably, instead of being 100%, would have probably been more manageable in the 30-35% due to what's going on, because you know, we're a higher risk because we're a large community. So you put in a different risk factor than someone who lives in a single family home.
The cost involved is much higher, I'm seeing, than other developments. They have claims, they have slip and falls. I don't know anybody paying over $600 at all. I've asked around. I have friends in Stonebridge. I have friends everywhere. Nobody's paying $600, short of being in a high rise in Jersey City. You know, so we're in a crisis situation. People are concerned. We've had 2 years in a row of massive increases. We need to prevent the third year.
And I agree with you.
And I think that's the main concern with most people.
And I agree with you. And part of the problem was solved by an insurance company by increasing the deductible, which will turn us into a claim-free as opposed to a multiple claims, because we won't have, as I explained earlier, when an insurance company makes a payment on a claim, that's the end result that you see. The process of paying that claim on the small claims could be equal to the amount they pay, or in some cases, double the amount they pay.
Yeah.
So when they pay out a $10,000 or $15,000 claim, the internal cost may be 10, 12, 15,000. So the actual cost to the insurance company isn't the amount of money that's paid, but all the factors that's figured into handling the claim, processing the claim, preparation of the claim, inspecting the claim, bringing in outside experts. I mean, there's a lot involved.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Okay, so that basically, so they look at, here we pay this, and here's our cost to pay that. So that's what's happening to us. And that's why I say when we have these small nuisance claims, they hurt you more on a larger claim.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Maureen Bonaguro, 74A Winthrop. I'm not questioning or discussing at all Bistro and whether they pay anything as far as maintenance and all that. But do they carry their own fire insurance? Or is that possibly a reason why our insurance rates are so up? Because they're running a large business there.
So they have their own insurance. It's not qualified as fire insurance. They do have to provide their own insurance, certificate of insurance, liability, workers' comp, and all of that. They also have to add the Whittingham Homeowners Association as an additional insured, and that is provided to our insurance provider when they run our coverage. So it's separate coverage. The structure belongs to you. It belongs to Whittingham Homeowners Association, but they are covered, and our insurance would subrogate against them if they were to cause any problems.
I just asked it because it's come up in conversation with friends.
They're insured.
Okay, thank you.
I have two more questions from Zoom. The first one is from Janet Horowitz. The budget line for administrative staffing has decreased in 2024. Is the activities director being replaced? So she's not, is she under administration?
No, she's on the
Right.
clubhouse.
Right. So, so I guess that's really just a two-part answer. The first part is that the activities director does not fall under administration. It falls under clubhouse. And at this time, there will only be one person in the recreation office. We will not be replacing the full-time position. The next question comes from Rise Frankel. Is there any value in creating a new committee to study insurance and plan for the future? And this year there were applications sent out for the insurance committee. So if you take a look at the committee applications that were sent out, their deadline is actually tomorrow. So get your committee applications in, and the committee charter is on that application.
One more.
Yes, I guess I'm Michelle Polk and I'm at Ramsey Way. My question really is under pool. There's an FOB fee. What does that mean?
That's your fobs. That's your,
What fobs?
under, where, are you in the top?
Yes, I am.
All right, that's pool pass and fob fees. All right, that really should be ID cards. It's just a mislabel there.
Okay, so then we're
Yeah,
not
that-
paying $6,000 for that?
No, that's revenue coming back in.
Oh, it is. It says six.
That's replacement.
6,000 and
Yeah,
6,000.
that's under revenues.
Okay. And the second one is about nursing services.
Sure.
It's my understanding that we haven't had a lead nurse this year because the person that was our lead nurse wasn't available to be our lead nurse. Now, it looks as though we're locked into a contract until.
Can you talk into the
27.
microphone, Michelle?
I thought I was. It looks as though we are locked into a contract with, I guess it's St. Peter's until 2027. And since we didn't have a lead nurse, should we be increasing our amount to St. Pete's rather than decreasing our amount to St. Pete's to the amount of 10,000? I'm not exactly
So
sure.
you do have coverage. So Mary Ann, who is our lead nurse, which means she makes the schedules here, and
Right.
she's
No,
normally.
I understand who it
Well,
was.
I'm just
I was-
explaining for
Yes.
everyone so they understand. So our contract doesn't stipulate a different hourly rate for the lead nurse. It's to provide a nurse 24/7, 365. So in her absence, because she had surgery, her supervisor comes in, checks in, and supervises. So there's no loss of services to the community.
Well, in a way there is, because there aren't any more, I guess you would call them workshops that Mary Ann or the previous peoples provided to us here in the community.
We just had one recently. We can always talk to Kristen. St. Peter's is always willing. So Mary Ann doesn't do those workshops, but St. Peter's is always willing to come in and give talks. They were here at our vendor fair and we talked about having them come back and go over some diabetes information. So we can talk to Kristen if there's something specific you're interested in, but St. Peter's is always happy to come and do a presentation.
I was under the impression that the lead nurse was the person that keynoted that information in order to have those sorts of things. So when Stephanie Fitzsimmons was here, or the other people that were, Katie was here, those things were taken care of.
Right,
on
they were,
a-
they were, right, they have a successor that I speak with all the time. When those women retired, when Stephanie and Katie retired, now there's someone else in their place. So if there's ever anything that you would like us to have discussed, we certainly can. We can talk more about that, but they're providing all of the services that are in their contract.
Okay, so maybe that's what we need, is more of a delineation as to what the responsibilities are for the people in the various positions, because I don't know what they are. And you seem to know what they are, but the rest of us don't. So even in talking to the nurses staff, it doesn't seem as though there is a consistency of people there going in the nurse's office.
Well, I mean, the
Yes.
contract is to provide a nurse 24/7. So there are floaters right now because Mary Ann again went out and had surgery. They're not going to terminate her and replace her. They're filling in until her position is refilled. And I'm sure that you know that in the post-COVID, current COVID world, nursing is very difficult field to fill. So they're sending as many people as they can, but they haven't left us with a single shift uncovered, and the nurses are providing the same services. I haven't had any calls with anyone who couldn't get a blood draw or a wound care or get into the nurse's office. So if you have a specific concern, please let me know.
It wasn't a specific concern. It was looking at the budget and determining that we have a $10,000 increase based on the fact that we have a contract up till 2027, when the services tended to differ from last year or the year before that till currently.
Okay,
So
again, I'm not
that's-
sure what you mean by services differing, but if it's just having people come in and discuss different things about healthcare, we can talk to Kristen and schedule more of those. That's not a part of the contract. They do that for free. That's a
Okay,
free
thank you.
service.
Thank you.
And is that the last one? All right. And the last slide, which I don't know if we're going to flip to, is the most important, is a thank you to everybody involved in this entire process. The WOA Board of Trustees, Greenbrier, Whittingham Community Association Board of Directors, the Budget and Finance Committees for both Greenbrier and Whittingham, Jamie and her staff. Thank you for going through this process. Again, we'll meet Monday night for the WOA and condo portion. And again, questions are welcome. This particular presentation will be posted to your portals this evening or tomorrow morning. And if you want a printout of this, you just have to request it at the front desk, or we'll leave a couple copies there. But if you needed a printout version, we can get that for you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Okay, motion made by Larry, Surjeet second. All in favor to adjourn? Yes.